I think we've all heard the name Andrew Tate within the past couple of days. He's a 4 times kickboxing champion who has now been banned from Instagram and Facebook due to the fact that the media hails him as a violent misogynist and an extreme sexist because of his views on women and his unique take on the relationships between the two genders. So without further ado, here's my take. Frankly, a lot of the sensationalist clips of Tate that have been going viral are taken wildly out of context. And yet, dare I say, as a woman, I agree with 99% of what he says. Because the fact of the matter is, what Tate preaches, 90% of what Tate preaches is simply just absolute fact.
Yeah, it's difficult because you have a lot of people who will sell their soul, and they sell their soul to the devil just to keep their platform or just to be promoted. I was saying this earlier with David Knight. If you look at the people within the sports world or people within the liberal Hollywood elite, etc., the people who get to the top are the ones who sell their soul and go furthest down the rabbit hole. So it's almost a race to the bottom. Who can be most crazy? Who can be most liberal? Who can sell their soul the quickest? Because that's the only way you get promoted nowadays. And that's what's happening. People are just giving up their morals.
If the government wants you safe, you are too far gone to save. What the government wants is slaves. Slavery is not gone anywhere, right? So the old school idea of slavery, let's talk about slavery. A government would get slaves, make them work for free and build things. That's slavery. So they've stopped doing that now. So what do they do now? They get people, make them build things for money, but the government print all the money. So if a government can create as much as they want of something from thin air, and you'll give up your life for this thing they can create from thin air as much as they want, you are still their slave.
The reason that the Matrix propagates so heavily the idea that females should have careers is because, one, it doubles the tax base, there's twice as many people who pay taxes. Two, when you had the traditional nuclear family, then the woman would raise the children. And if the woman raises the children, then the family's values and ideals will be instilled inside of the children. But you don't want that because of your country. You want to own the future. You need to own the youth. How communism works. So what you want to do is send the women to work so the children spend all their time at school, and then you get to program their minds and you get to tell them what to think. Because that's what happens. You see it now. Parents arguing with their own children based on what the children learn at school compared to what their parents believe. Now, I'm not saying that's the only reason women's rights exist. I'm not saying that women's rights is a bad thing. I'm saying that every single movement has the genuine reason, and there's hidden reasons behind all of it.
There's nothing to debate about when he expresses his opinions about the government, when he talks about politics, history, the decline of Western civilization, and the social paradigm that we're currently living through, because it's simply just the truth.
Who do you think is they?
There are people who've been in charge of the world for quite a long time. And to keep it simple and to make sure this podcast stays up, the people who control the money are going to control the world. Because if you have money, you can influence people.
Yeah.
Right? So, and the governments, what do the governments need? Money. So they're a layer in the chain.
That's what I mean.
The governments are the illusion of choice.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter who the fucking president is. It's bullshit. Right? So the true matrix, the people who truly control it, they want as much influence and power as possible. This is human nature. If you have a company, you're not going to hire employees who disagree with you and don't listen to you. You're going to want them to be as compliant as possible, just like you're going to want your woman to be as compliant as possible. It's who you are as a man, right? So if you're one of the most important, powerful billionaires on the planet, you're going to want as much power over the world as possible. You want people to be compliant. So you're going to look for that outside support structures and attempt to attack them. If you had a girlfriend and she's 100% and she listens to you, except she has this one friend who's always in her ear talking shit, you're going to say, don't be friends with her anymore. So if you're trying to teach the children X, but their parents are trying to teach them Y, you're going to say that we need them to spend less time around their parents. So how do we do that? We need the parents to be more busy, and we need them to go somewhere.
That's just like some crazy control shit, though, is what I'm saying.
Yeah. But that's what they've done.
Yeah.
It's on purpose. Like, it's very, very purposeful. It's all done on purpose. These people
I just
are
think
not fucking stupid.
the average person doesn't understand that, like, that statement means that, like, there's people above us that are just trying to control us, right?
Oh, completely. There's people in charge above us trying to control us all. I mean, if the last 3 years haven't proved that, I don't know what's going to prove it to you. Like, start to work. Start to show God the beauty of his own creations. You'd be amazed how lucky you'll become. Wow. God is unhappy with these people. And inside their hearts, they're unhappy. We talk about depression, anxiety, all those things you mentioned earlier on this podcast. That comes from self-loathing. You loathe your own weakness. You loathe your own laziness. This is what all of these things are. I don't feel depression. How can I feel depression when I'm the most powerful version of me that I could ever fucking be?
And in today's soft and sensitive generation, where subjective reality takes precedence over any objective factuality, the truth is triggering. The truth triggers the unconsciousness in people. And honestly, most people are just that, unconscious. Now let's talk about the other 10% of what he talks about, which is simply him making exaggerated and outrageous claims about his own lifestyle. And no, I don't personally think that it's honorable and noble for a man to sleep with multiple women and have multiple concurrent relationships that Tate claims to be in. But I have enough cognitive capacity to understand that this is his personal lifestyle, and he's not really forcing anyone to emulate it. At least what you see is what you get with Tate. And guess what? The soy boys who are hating on him right now and applauding the cancel culture that has canceled him are living the exact same lifestyle, but they're just doing it behind closed doors. At least Tate is actually honest enough to own who he is. But regardless of which, why is it that the clips where he speaks so highly of women, why do they never go viral?
I absolutely not really love women. I have nothing against women. I believe women are the most precious things on the planet. They create life. They should be protected. They should be provided for. I would never let a woman pay for a bill. If someone touched any of my women, I would stand up against 10 men by myself and risk my life to protect her. I believe that women are beautiful creatures.
Eventually, I decided that I wanted to go home, and Andrew walked me out, got up like a gentleman, walked me to the front of the building, and he ordered me an Uber home, and he ordered me an XXL executive, the most over-the-top, extravagant Uber there is. He paid for it, and he said to the Uber driver, "This is my wife. Please make sure you look after her, make sure she gets home safely. Otherwise, he'd have him to deal with." I thought that was very, very nice. He was being very gentlemanly, making sure that I got home safely, which is totally different and in contrast to what social media is saying about him. They're saying that he hates women, he abuses women, and clearly none of that is true in my personal experience so far. I've been with him alone, with his brothers, and nothing negative has happened. I've always felt very protected and very comfortable. And he texted me to make sure that I got home okay. Andrew says that women are the most precious things on the planet and they need to be protected, and that certainly felt true. It felt like he really meant what he said.
So it's no surprise to me that young men resonate with Tate's message, because for the longest time now, men have been emasculated by radical feminists, and they've lost their roles in society. They've had to sit back and listen to feminists attack masculinity and put down every trait that is intrinsically masculine.
They've turned him into this thing through thousands of years of breeding.
Is that what
just
they're doing
like they're trying to do to men? Exactly. That's what they're trying to do.
Where's
to men.
Andrew Tate when you need him?
Yes, that's what this toxic femininity shit, or masculinity. Toxic femininity is right. That was a Freudian slip. But toxic masculinity, what that means is like, oh, you mean the men who carved the world.
Yes, now you don't need them.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
now you want to get rid of them.
But you do need them. You just don't think you need them because you don't need them right now. And then Russia has them, and China is making them more. China's making them more masculine.
Because the new age alpha male is supposed to show emotion and be vulnerable. And while it's necessary to look at the ideological causes of leftism in men, I think the biological reasons must not be ignored. And that starts with understanding that we are now living at a time with the lowest testosterone levels. Testosterone levels are at an all-time low, and low testosterone equals to effeminate, obedient men.
I am inspiring the youth of today, the masculine youth of today, to become men, and you think that's a negative thing. Why?
No,
Why?
I don't think you're inspiring them to become men, because like real men are in touch with their emotions and their vulnerability and don't need to be like wielding and taking power. Real men are self-aware.
That is not true in most places on the planet. In most places on the planet, men need to be capable and competent, because if they don't, they do not survive. And I'll tell you something now, sir. I'll tell you something else now. You will sit here and talk right now about the patriarchy and how you can be in touch with your feelings and all this bullshit. The second you're physically assaulted or physically threatened, the first thing you do is you call a toxically masculine police officer to turn up with a weapon to protect you, because you cannot protect yourself. You are not against the idea of masculine power. You're not against the idea of men who have masculine imperatives to defense. All you've done is outsource it to someone else to do at the end of a phone call because you're too scared to do it yourself.
So I just don't understand how Tate is a bad influence and a misogynist because he teaches men to have standards. But Cardi B is empowering, and she's empowering women because she teaches them to WAP, to drug men and rob them. I mean, the double standard here is quite impeccable.
Asking people about Andrew Tate.
He's a bald idiot. It's like he sucks.
He's a bitch.
This is disgusting.
I'm gonna find you out. You, Andrew.
I just don't understand how it's socially acceptable for women to come out and say things like, kill all men, but men are shamed for simply demanding respect. So ask yourself, what sort of inverted society are we living in where misogyny is demonized, yet misandry is celebrated? Why are women congratulated for having a standard and men are humiliated for it? Why do feminists only want equality where they don't have an unfair advantage? What about equality and freedom of speech? So, I think my take essentially is what people don't really understand is Andrew Tate having multiple girlfriends at a time isn't inherently what makes him masculine. What makes him masculine is his ability to rise above the herd, stand up and speak out against our puppet masters in a world where you're shamed for simply stating what everyone else is thinking, but too scared to say it themselves. What makes him masculine is his strength of character and his fearless conviction in his beliefs, and the fact that he acknowledges objective truth and teaches men to stop being wet wipes, stop making excuses, teaching them to be disciplined despite how they may feel, and start taking control over their lives by becoming valuable and strong and the best version of themselves. So let me clarify something. Don't be fooled. The liberal oligarchs that run our world have not deplatformed Tate because of his sexist views on women. They have censored him because of the message he's purveying about the powers that be. He's waking people up on an unprecedented scale to the fact that we are modern day slaves to the shadow elite who truly run our world. Let's not forget that feminine men are no threat to a globalist agenda. That is the dangerous message they want to eradicate, because the matrix cannot allow our society to thrive on true masculinity. Why? Because masculine men start revolutions. And if there was ever a time we desperately needed a revolution, it would be now.
The matrix is everywhere. It is all around us. Even now, in this very room, you can see it when you look out your window or when you turn on your television. You can feel it when you go to work, when you go to church, when you pay your taxes. It is the world that has been pulled over your eyes to blind you from the truth. What truth? That you are a slave, Neo. Like everyone else, you were born into bondage, born into a prison that you cannot smell or taste or touch. A prison for your